Welcome to Hacker Chronicles, the podcast that uncovers the hidden history of cybercrime, from the earliest digital exploits to the most sophisticated hacks of today, where we unravel the wild, wired world of cybercrime with a twist that puts you in the role of a cyber sleuth. Some stories are ripped straight from the headlines, while others are spun from the darkest corners of imagination. I'm your host, The Phantom Protocol, and in each episode, I'll weave a tale that will keep you guessing. Is this a true crime that shook the world, a fictional heist crafted to thrill, or a fusion of fact and fiction designed to challenge your perceptions until the very end? Perhaps your cyber sleuth skills will even help you piece it together before the conclusion. Either way, it's going to be a wild ride, and at the end of each episode, you'll have the opportunity to vote true or false on 5 challenging multiple-choice questions designed to test your concentration and cognitive capacity just by heading over to hackerchronicles.com for your chance to join the Cyber Sleuth Leader Board. You might even secure a spot in the top 10 as an officiated cyber super sleuth, giving you access to some fantastic perks. Today, we're time-warping back to 1973, where disco ruled computers were the size of refrigerators, and a bank teller in New York allegedly pulled off a $1.5 million heist using the bank's computer system. Real or not, stick around to find out how this caper unfolds and to see if you can crack the case. So let's start the scoreboard rolling with this very first Season 1, Episode 1 of Hacker Chronicles titled First Blood. Imagine, if you will, it's 1973. Nixon's in the White House. Bell-bottoms are in, disco is on the horizon, The Exorcist is freaking out moviegoers, the internet is a distant dream, and the use of computers within the banking industry was just starting to revolutionize bank clearing facilities and streamlining financial transactions like never before. In 1973, cybersecurity was a pipe dream. Companies relied heavily on physical security measures like locks, guards, and vaults to safeguard tangible assets that could be seen and touched. However, this tale, whether real or imagined, highlights how digital systems were largely unprotected and vulnerable, and the ease by which our bank teller exploited these weaknesses prompted banks to reconsider their security strategies following the discovery and extent of the crime. In those early days of computing, most folks would never have heard of a hacker, and law enforcement were ill-equipped for the upcoming age of cybercrime. In setting the scene, let's keep the specific bank name out of it for now, with our modern society overly focused upon defamation, liability, and regulatory compliance challenges, but suffice to say, this was a prominent Park Avenue savings bank, and according to the New York Times, while there had been a number of larger commercial bank and corporation embezzlements prior to this event, there had probably never been a savings bank embezzlement, even 1/4 as big as this was, which is probably one of the reasons why the story made front-page news in 1973. Working at this bank was a 41-year-old senior teller, 9-year veteran and family man whose name, for our purposes, we'll simply call Mr. X. Our Mr. X supervised the other tellers and was paid around $11,000 per year for his efforts, which afforded him a modest $275 per month garden apartment in New Jersey, where he spent his evenings with his wife and 2 teenage daughters. But Mr. X was said to enjoy gambling up to the tune of around $30,000 per day on professional basketball games and horse racing. During the day, our teller and family man was secretly studying the sports pages and placing bets never less than $15,000. Suffice to say, our teller's ambitions well exceeded his income, or did it? You see, while Mr. X certainly had a gambling problem, he was nevertheless forward-thinking, able to anticipate potential vulnerabilities and adapt tactics to exploit them, all while staying ahead of security measures in place at the time. In a New York bank, something wild is going down. A bank teller, our Mr. X, is probably elbow-deep in ledgers all day, while making plans to siphon off over $1.5 million using the bank's own computer system intended to protect customer deposits and facilitate ease of banking services. To put this into context, $1.5 million is not a small sum even by today's standards. But in 1973, this was a small fortune even for the New York Mafia, so accounting for inflation, that's about $11 million in today's money. So, how does a bank teller pull off a heist like this in 1973, whether real or imagined? Let's break it down. Back then, banks were just dipping their toes into computers, and bank employees potentially had free reign over these systems, especially those in senior positions such as our chief bank teller. Think IBM mainframes, chugging along with magnetic tapes. These systems were cutting edge but had no cybersecurity. No firewalls, No encryption, no real-time checks, no two-factor anything. If you had access to a terminal, you were essentially in control. For those who understood the technology, it was possible to manipulate the system at will, at least for a time. Our Mr. X likely had legitimate and unfettered access. He worked there after all, and used this access to embezzle over $1.5 million without anyone noticing over a 3-year period. You see, this forward-thinking chief teller cleverly concealed his theft by shuffling hundreds of individual accounts, feeding fraudulent and inaccurate data into them to ensure they always appeared up to date. He siphoned off tens of thousands from these accounts at various times, but was careful to redeposit the specific amount stolen when quarterly interest payments were due, maintaining the illusion of normalcy. With each withdrawal and deposit, Mr. X skillfully manipulated the bank's computer system, ensuring that the records consistently reflected the correct figures. This meticulous approach allowed his theft to go undetected for over 3 years. It is said that his propensity to gamble was ultimately his undoing. He seldom won, and as he got deeper into debt, he began losing more and more. This relentless cycle drove him to steal increasingly larger amounts from his employer to feed his love of gambling. Perhaps he was hoping for a big win, which would allow him to return all of the money he had stolen, with a healthy, life-changing profit to boot. Unfortunately, that's one question we might never know the answer to. What we do know is the embezzlement might never have been discovered were it not for the fact our Mr. X placed his bets with a large-scale bookmaking operation, which was at the time also under investigation by federal, state, and police authorities, resulting in bookmaking records being seized during a raid as part of the investigation. In analyzing these records, authorities uncovered that Mr. X, a bank employee, was placing bets of $30,000 or more almost daily. This alarming pattern prompted them to monitor his activities more closely. As they observed him, it became evident that he was living a secretive lifestyle, which ultimately led to his arrest. At his arraignment in the Manhattan Criminal Court on charges of grand larceny and forgery, our Mr. X pleaded not guilty and was held on a bail of just $20,000. Sounds cut and dry, right? Well, there's a surprising twist. After being arraigned in 1973, Mr. X reportedly served only 2 months of his 3-year sentence. Following his release, he gained further notoriety by publishing an article in the June 1974 issue of Bank Systems and Equipment magazine. In this article, he detailed his method of using computer tapes to identify large deposits for embezzlement, shedding light on the very techniques that enabled his criminal activities. No doubt many of you are wondering, how did Mr. X, who stole over $1.5 million from his employer, manage to secure a mere $20,000 bail and serve only 2 months of a 3-year sentence? That's an excellent question. However, we must consider the context of our legal system and the power of public opinion in 1973, a time when one man in a suit could embezzle such a significant amount without detection. Mr. X repeatedly committed his crimes over more than 3 years, all while being perceived as a nice guy by many bank employees. This situation likely caused unprecedented reputational damage to the savings bank involved. To mitigate the negative publicity, the bank may have opted to quickly bury the incident rather than pursue the largely unrecoverable losses, especially given that the teller involved had a propensity for gambling. Looking back, what made this case so groundbreaking wasn't the traditional method of embezzlement. There were no stacks of cash being slipped out the back door, no forged signatures on checks, no ski masks, no shotguns or getaway cars. This was different. This was digital and shockingly accomplished by just one man in a tie who typed his way to a fortune. This was an inside job, the first of its kind, with no need for an accomplice or modern-day masked hacker in a basement. Our Mr. X used his legitimate access and knowledge of the bank's computer system's flaws to siphon off over $1.5 million without anyone noticing. Our 1973 teller, real or not, was the original insider crook and sparked some big questions. Who's to blame when a system's exploited? The teller, the bank, the technology? So, whether fact or fiction, these same questions are a puzzle we're still solving over 50 years later. So using your cyber sleuth skills, whether you believe this 1973 heist to be true, false, or a combination of fact and fiction, what makes it interesting is it may well have laid the blueprint for cybercrime, phishing, ransomware, breaches, you name it. This story shows technology can be a tool for anyone with digital access and a motive. No fancy code, just human nature, greed, opportunity, and trust. So, what's the legacy of this 1973 caper? If it indeed occurred, it ignited the cybersecurity arms race. Banks began to tighten their security measures, implementing stronger systems, passwords, and logging practices, and eventually adopting encryption methods. But was it enough? Cybercriminals kept pace, and by the 1980s, hackers like Kevin Mitnick were legends. By the 2000s, cybercrime was and still is a global beast, costing trillions. While this crime and others like it prompted banks to enhance their security posture, the battle is far from over. The evolution of security measures from physical to digital underscores an ongoing struggle between innovation and the ever-evolving tactics of cybercriminals intent on committing fraud. Today, that 1973 heist seems like small potatoes, especially with the average ransomware payment now exceeding this amount, with future projections indicating that attacks could occur every 2 seconds by 2031. This historical incident highlighted a crucial lesson. As technology advances, so do the methods to exploit it. In our current landscape, with the rise of AI, quantum computing, and the rapid growth of cryptocurrencies like Monero, which incorporate robust privacy features, the stakes are higher than ever. The potential rewards for those we now commonly refer to as cybercriminals have also escalated dramatically, underscoring the ongoing battle between innovation and security. So, what's the takeaway from this very first and highly successful digital crime? Trust is inherently fragile, and systems are only as strong as the people behind them. Whether this story is true or merely a clever fabrication, it underscores a timeless truth. Human nature, marked by greed, curiosity, and the potential for mistakes, remains one of the weakest links, even in today's modern digital age. As a cyber sleuth, you may have already drawn your conclusions as to whether you believe this story, or any part of it, to be true or false. It does, however, show how early computers, 10 times or more larger than the average desktop PC today, and with only a fraction of the processing speed and power, could be twisted into something sinister. This has been a glimpse into a world where technology meets temptation and shows how insider employees, not just outsiders, can represent a very significant threat to a company's profits and losses, information security, intellectual property, and reputation. This then begs the question: would you be tempted by your own personal or financial troubles given the right set of circumstances? If the answer is either yes, or even maybe, doesn't that also affirm that while cybersecurity practices have advanced significantly since 1973, human nature still remains one of the biggest cyber threats today in 2025? Well, that's a wrap for the very first episode of Hacker Chronicles. I sincerely hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. With this recent caper still fresh in your mind, why not visit hackerchronicles.com and take the free Cyber Sleuth True or False challenge? Test your listening skills and see how well you can distinguish fact from fiction. As a savvy cyber detective, you might just earn a well-deserved spot on the leaderboard. If you've stuck with me this far, I can only hope you will be back for more episodes to come. As a creator, it's just little old me doing all of the research, transcribing, editing, Q&As, and leaderboard updates, and everything else to boot, all while I work and manage a family. So if you did appreciate the effort that went into this episode and want to support me, just head over to hackerchronicles.com. That's a wrap, and I hope to see you in the next episode.